Josh, tell me about the different behavioral concepts. You're a guy who's done a lot of learning, and obviously this has now formed the basis of how you work with people now. But I'd love you to tell me about one in particular, which you've already mentioned a couple of times, which is the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy. If you can just talk us through that. Yes, we talked about that on the podcast in the past, but I'd love to then link that back to how that's then implemented in your coaching practice.
Yeah. Like there are probably four main ones that I work through, but yeah, with CBT, in a nutshell, it's essentially that our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors all interact. So they don't happen on their own. It's like when you do something, it affects your thoughts and your feelings. When you think something, it affects your feelings and your behaviors. And when you feel something, again, it affects your behaviors and your thoughts. So let's say, for example, we go back to that beer analogy where you have two beers on a Tuesday night, and that's the behavior. And then you think, oh, I've ruined my diet this week. I've had two beers on a Tuesday night. And then you feel like you failed. And then the consequence could be further behaviors where you then just go, all right, I'm going to have a whole six pack then because I've already ruined my diet. So you can see how they all interact. And what we want to try and do is think about how we can change the thought process, right? So challenge those thoughts or rational beliefs, which could then change the following consequences, which are either emotional or behavioral or both.
So let's run with that example then. Let's run
Yeah.
with that typical feelings that someone has when they have two beers and they're trying to, quote unquote, get healthy. What is the thoughts that we need to challenge?
Yeah.
Typically?
So we can use the ABCDE framework, all right? So the A stands for the activating event, which is having the two beers on the Tuesday night. Now, usually people think that because they've had those two beers, that means they then had the whole six pack, right? But what happens is it's actually the irrational belief, so the B. You have a belief about the activating event. So my belief is that I have stuffed up my diet, right? I'm a failure. And then the consequence is I feel like shit, and then I'm going to have the other four beers of the six pack. That's the ABC part. What we want to try and do is disrupt this irrational belief. So you can ask a few questions. Well, am I taking things out of context? Am I thinking in black or white terms? Am I a bit of an all-or-nothing thinker at the moment? If I zoom out, what's another way to look at this? Again, if I think about what the purpose was, if the purpose was that you're celebrating a promotion or your partner's promotion, then it's fine to have two beers on a Tuesday night, all right? You might even say, well, what would you say to a friend in a similar situation? All right, so you're starting to challenge these thoughts by asking some questions. And then the E stands for an effective new belief. And that's like, well, I'm not a failure. I haven't ruined my diet. All I did was have two beers, but pretty consistently, I don't drink during the week. I eat really, really well. I train consistently. Like two beers during the week isn't a big issue.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so simple when you lay it out like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, I can think back to younger Ed who had that exact feeling when I had two beers. And obviously it would be a lot more than two beers, and then that would mean a whole week of basically avoiding carbohydrates in the thought process being that, I need to now do the opposite extreme of what I had deemed to be unhealthy and be absolutely as healthy as possible to earn the right to be able to do that again. And then the pattern just repeated and repeated and repeated until eventually, life intervened in a way. Business became the priority. My health became a priority because of, injuries and illnesses that I didn't want to experience anymore, that I've decided to make that change. But for me, that ended up because I think there was two parts to that. Number one, I didn't realize that I was stuck in a loop. That was the first part. I didn't realize there was actually potentially damaging thoughts that were basically reinforced and loop happening over again. And then the second part to it is that it took me 8 years to change, because life just got in the way, and that was the reason. That was the reason I did change. But if people are listening to us now and maybe thinking about their own behaviors or things that they're doing that they've tried to change and have fallen short on multiple times, what's a framework that someone, alone listening to this podcast right now can start to do themselves to perhaps start to see, to get to D and to get to E?
Yeah. I truly think that like this is a great framework just to try and challenge the irrational belief is like what is this belief that I'm having? So what is like not the ABC, but like let's say one, what is triggering this belief? Two, where is this belief come from? Three, how has this belief served me? So what has the benefit been? Because there is obviously a benefit, that's why it's there. But then four, how is it holding me back from living the life that I want to live? Right? Because I should be able to have 2 beers on a Tuesday night to celebrate a promotion without then feeling like a failure and then writing off the rest of the night. And then that affects my sleep the next day and I don't go to the gym and, so on and so forth, ripple effect, right? And then I think just learning to ask yourself some questions, to challenge those beliefs is really, really helpful. But I think one thing that I like to teach my clients is purpose. So eating with a purpose, drinking with a purpose, like what was the purpose behind the action, all right? And if it's a problem behavior, then that's going to help you find a better solution for it. Because if you get to the root cause of the problem, right, you go, all right, cool, let's find a different thing. So if we use the same analogy, but the 2 Bs were for stress, okay, well, it's not now just about having 2 beers, it's about drinking because you were stressed, all right? So what is a replacement behavior you can have for next time that you feel stressed on a Tuesday afternoon that doesn't involve drinking? That is a bit more adaptive. It's more aligned with your values and the person that you want to become.